Hey everyone, how you doing today? We've got our man Rylas Dana back with us. How you doing, sir?
Hi, doing great.
Yeah. One of the things that I just want people to hear over and over and over again is yes, there may be some tax changes, some modifications going on in the real estate investing world, but there is one example that I've actually used many times that I think is going to become even more popular, right? If you're a landlord that's owned it for 20 or 30 years, you've depreciated it to zero, you've owned it free and clear, you can either sell for cash, right? Big lump of cash, pay the IRS a bunch of money, or you could do seller financing, potentially pay zero in capital gains. So I think a lot of the answers to stepped up basis, 1031 exchange, higher taxes is seller financing. And I wanted to ask an estate attorney what he thought. So Rylas, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, it's kind of that trend that led me to the one rental at a time channel. And then also thinking about, how I met Pace Morby and Laura Morby, now one of your new guests,
Yes.
a few years ago. And the reason I became, one of the reasons I became so interested and became friends with him is he was buying houses subject to the mortgage.
Right.
And I was like, you know, typical answer. I'm like, is that even legal? Like, can you even
Oh
do
my
that?
God. The attorney. Is that legal? Yeah.
So, because I'm aware of the, acceleration clause and things like that. So I'm like,
For
wow,
sure.
that's cool. How do you do it? So
You just
this
ignore
is,
this thing over here or what's going on? Yeah.
no, but he had all the right answers and he
Yeah.
was obviously doing it. So
Yeah.
very, very soon after I met Pace, he invited me to do a live and I met Jamil. That
Mhm.
was like the most I talked to him was during a live. And it was clear that these guys obviously know how to do transactions like that, and they do several of them a month. So
Yeah.
it's obviously something you can do. So
Mhm.
I I think this topic of seller financing is going to be more and more out in the open and more normal.
Yeah.
I, I was listening to one of the interviews you did with Laura.
Mhm.
I think you guys were talking about real estate agents, and
Yep.
she said that a lot of she would hear it from real estate agents that it's illegal to
Yeah.
do things,
Yeah.
like
You
seller
can't do
financing.
that. What?
So it's like again, it's like yeah, we've done it a lot, and they have a lot of lawyers on their team, very good lawyers that they've hired to write these contracts and to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So there is kind of a stigma against it, right? I think a lot of people don't know that's an option,
Mhm.
right? They think that the only thing you can do is when you sell your house, you have to be paid
Mhm.
that whole price.
Yeah. Yeah, we added a whole seller financing section to the course, one rental at a time, for this exact reason. I and if you're Pace or you're anybody looking for seller financing deals, the first thing you have to do is think about the seller. And I think it's a branch. I think it's binary. It's one or the other. If if the seller has no or very skinny equity, like they can't cover the transaction cost to get out, which I think is going to happen more and more and more given these avoidable foreclosures and the seconds being created, creative financing subject to is going to be the answer. But what we could talk about here is there's another angle, which is I own it free and clear. I bought this in 1984. I paid my mortgage and I never refied. I own it free and clear. And oh, by the way, because I do what's legal, I depreciated it to zero. So if I sell it, I pay 25% depreciation recapture. Under the current administration, I could pay upwards of 43%. So I could be out 60, 65% of the gain. Help me, right? So if you run into a seller that's owned it for a while, um, dude, seller financing, having them be the bank is such a huge win. Capital gains could be zero. You could maintain income. It's secured against the property. I mean, there's just so many benefits. You've got to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah, so I think that instead of just the people with little or no equity, it's going to bring this whole other group of savvy investors that understand, like, that are doing it in the name of tax planning. That
Yeah.
say, hey, if I take the all the cash right now, I get hit with higher taxes. So if there's a way to protect me
Hmm.
in the deal and structure it where I get payments over a time and can reduce that tax liability,
Hmm.
because it's all about the after tax return, right? It doesn't matter what your pre-tax return is,
Yeah,
your
exactly.
pre-tax income. It's what you actually take home.
Yeah, it's
So
just yeah, what's left over. And again, I want people to hear here. I want people to hear here, whatever. Um, that note that's created is an asset that actually ends up in your estate plan.
Yes. Yeah. So it is an asset, and it's kind of a confusing assets for people because you owning debt. So
Mm-hmm.
people, they're often associated with debt as someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can, when you own debt, when you sell a house and you finance it, you become the bank and you
Exactly.
own that note. So the best way to hold that asset is at least in Arizona and California, is you want to make sure it's inside of a revocable trust.
Right.
It might be in another LLC, another business entity, but ultimately you want it wrapped up in your estate plan. So when you pass away, that those payments continue to be made and someone has the ability to step right in and manage that asset.
Yeah. Yeah. People, this is going to be the right answer. I mean, I did a math with a CPA, Bob Lang, where the Maine, as in the state bean counters. And we did math on selling for cash, meaning you get a check at the end of the closing, or selling on a note. And let's just say the delta was amazing, right? First off, if you take cash today, you can pretty much plan, if you're in New York, California, high tax, where you have state income tax on capital gains, you could walk away with losing 60% of your gain, right? The government gets 60, you get 40. If you sell or finance, we can structure it where you pay 0% capital gains. You will structure it where, for example, if you sold it for 200 cash, you may end up with 400. That's just how interest works. You collect more over time. You still have an asset. It's still secured. You know, folks, if you're doing any kind of marketing to sellers that have owned their property a couple of decades, now is the time to hit them with seller financing, because nobody wants to pay 60% to the government after, again, they've been a landlord for 20 or 30 years. You know how hard that is? And then to think they're going to cut a check for 60% of the gains to somebody else, that's not a good feeling.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not. So there are answers though. There, if you structure with the seller financing.
Yep.
So going back to the people I had, they owned a few rentals. He was a pilot,
Okay.
and his financial advisor is telling him, as he's getting closer to retirement, maybe you should get rid of these rentals,
Of course he is. Financial
and
advisors.
yeah. And what I was telling them is, hey, look, hey, look at his incentives, and then there is options in your real estate.
Yeah.
That if you don't want to be landlords anymore, there are ways where you can structure. You don't have to just sell it. You can either sell or finance it, or you can do other, basically, seller
Yeah.
financing, or
If you don't want to be a landlord, be a bank. Banks make lots of money.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. I feel like, as there's, we're getting ready and we're starting to see more inventory come out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you asked me before we went on air, how I'm feeling about these tax changes. And I'm like, it's exciting for a tax attorney. It just creates a reason for movement, right? It
Right.
creates a reason why people have to do
It's
something.
a choice. Yeah. Yep.
So that's great for my world. And I think it's nice I think we're going to see more of a trend of seller financing.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Pace is going to be on TV talking about it here soon. I'm sure he'll be talking about that as part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and just showing some of the more creative stuff they're doing. So it's going to be an interesting world, and not to get too far off the thing, but seller financing and then cryptocurrency, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of going one step closer to there.
Yeah.
Like people get used to being the bank, and
Yeah.
then it's going to
Bitcoin.
lead, eventually.
Yeah.
My kids were in my office. I'm glad I was here a little bit early. I noticed they unplugged my microphones and things. Thanks, guys. It's a fun trick.
Let's see if Dad
Doing
finds out.
everything. Yeah. But it's you know things are changing fast, I feel like. So
Yeah.
seller financing is a step in the right direction. It's more options for the sellers, right? It's more ways to solve problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Most sellers, again, I talk to them all the time, right? You get known in a market, other landlords know you. Most landlords, right, if you own it for decades, they get used to that monthly income. Most of them don't want lumps of cash. Lumps of cash are a problem, right? They're like, hey, I used to, I don't know, used to cash flow $800 a month with this thing. If I sell or finance it, maybe I collect 1,200. And oh, by the way, I pay less taxes. So net win-win. So yeah, get comfortable with the conversations. You'll do a lot of deals, I think, coming soon.
Yes, yeah, and I was gonna say, similarly, I've dealt with a lot of people that are going into retirement, And no matter how much they've saved, I've had people where they've had, great net worths, put a lot away, and they're still kind of freaked out about the fact that they're not getting a paycheck anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
all I get to do is withdraw 4%. That's no fun. I need that monthly injection. Yeah.
yeah, but I think just structuring it that way, where that they're getting automatic payments,
I agree.
brings security to people.
Yeah, I think it's great. Well, Rylas, I know we're just about out of time. I appreciate you. This has been a great couple conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.